Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it? You already know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. She's a what? She's a what? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. She's a torta with a snack habit. Bye. Hey, I missed that shit, right? It's been a minute. But anyways, I wanted to talk about a certain subject that I see all over YouTube, man. And I kind of spoke on it a little bit on the collective clips. Make sure you go over there and trip out on the video. But is Dubs a racist? Bam, ba-dum, bam, bam, right? Come on now. I've heard some crazy things on YouTube. And this is probably one of the craziest things I've heard. But then you got to understand, I get to call them. You know, I get to conversate like, hey, bro, are you racist and shit? That's what I'm hearing, right? Charlie Holmes, Sasuke. I mean, I like a white car better than a black car, but that's about it, right? I've heard some crazier things. But let's speak some truth here. Let's speak on why people perceive that. And I'm going to be bringing on Dubs pretty soon, man, for an interview. And I'm going to ask him some of the icky and tricky questions. I have to, you know. I feel the best way to address it is to address it himself. And I got some questions that's going to decipher a whole lot of shit. We need to sit down and get down to the bottom of this. But even more so, here's my perspective on it. Here's what I think. You know, a lot of people believe that Dubs is still sympathetic to the Southern cause, the Southsider cause, right? Why wouldn't he be? He grew up in Southern California. He grew up as a youngster through the YA system. And let me tell you, it's pounded. It's instilled into your mind. You're educated and indoctrinated that you are more superior than everyone around you. He went to a place called Paso Robles, Paso. For those that know the Youth Authority YA back in them days, in Southern California, you go to SRCC through intake. Basically, that's the reception. And then you either go to, well, you can go anywhere. But if you're in the Southern, facilities, you were going to Nellis. If you were a youngster, you were going to Paso, which was a little bit older, or YTS. And then, of course, they had Ventura. And Ventura was mixed boys and girls, and not a lot of gente went to Ventura. If you went to Ventura and then you went somewhere else from Ventura, you were going to be questioned in a very vicious manner. You know, not a lot of people went there. Everybody wanted to go there, but you didn't go there. So anyways, he went to Paso. Now, Paso was known as one of the most racial institutions, period. The Southerners, there was no Norteños there. There was for a quick minute. They did take Norteños there, but they immediately segregated them after a couple riots. And they were on their own, in their own building. They even went to school at night. I mean, they separated them, period, because you did have Southsiders trying to jump fences, trying to get at them, right? And because there was only a handful of Norteños that the administration had decided to send down there, it didn't last very long. Now, we went to Nellis, and we established in Nellis, and there were several of us, and we were able to plant our flags and stick there. And went through a lot of guerra, a lot of war, a lot of bullshit, but we were there, okay? Different institutions, different places. So in Southern California, in Paso, what you had was blacks on one side and Southsiders on the other side. And a sprinkle in the whites. Wasn't very many of them, but there were some, right? And they were constantly at war within each other. There was, of course, a lot of black versus black going on, Crips, Bloods, and all that, because this is back in the 90s when they were really doing that shit. Crips and Bloods, there was no truce. There was none of this is pre-Rodney Kings and the riots and all that. So they were having melees constantly. Crips and Bloods were getting off on each other. And then, of course, you had Southerners from Southern California going at it with the blacks. Now, the blacks had the numbers. They always had the numbers in the Youth Authority. They were deep because you had Crips, Bloods, Kumis at the time, which were just Bay Area cats. They were deeper. Okay, so you would have 50 blacks to a compa and maybe 20 Southerners, and they would have riots all the time. And so it was very racial. So you can understand someone like Dubs coming from that is going to have a chip on his shoulder or maybe a little bit of animosity. But then you have someone that has been through guerra against brothers constantly, catches a murder case and then goes to prison. And in prison, it is racially segregated. It is stick with your own people. That's just the way it is. So now imagine going from that to that. And of course, you're pushing with your ranfla. You're pushing with your people. That's what you're supposed to do. The brothers are going to stick with the brothers because that's what they're supposed to do. It's in your best interest. It's who you can identify with. It's who you're most comfortable around. North with North, South with South. Now, we're going to get to all that, how Mexicans are divided. We divide ourselves. Paisas, Norteños, Southsiders, right? all divided. It's not one big Mexican car, right? It's all Mexicans are split up according to, where you're from, geographical. And of course, if you're a Mexican national, what is considered a paisa, then of course you go with your gente too. So it's all split up. Whereas blacks, yes, they do have different cars, Crips, Bloods, Kumis, Muslims, non-affiliates, all that. But if something pops off, they all come together and stick together. It's a black thing, right? So now, like, trip out. Unless it's amongst their own, then they do Crips and Bloods. And there's still that guerra that still happens, even after the truce. So now you have someone like Dubs who goes in that system and immediately is thrust into what you would call a racial atmosphere. Okay, so you would think, oh man, he has to be a racist. He has to be racial. Ever since he was a youngster, it's been Mexicans against blacks, Southside against blacks, and now he goes to prison. It's the same damn thing. But understand this. When you hear these things, oh, the blacks got off with the essays or the Mexicans, right? They like to call, the brown man Mexicans. They got off with the Mexicans. They're not getting off with all the Mexicans. They're getting off with certain sects. Sex, not sex, right? It's different groups. It'd be the South versus the blacks, or the North versus the blacks, or the paisas versus the blacks. It's not everyone in a big racial riot, all these groups come together against the blacks. That's not how it is. It's all the blacks against that one group. Okay? Now, we've heard that the Southsiders go at it a lot with the brothers man in prison. That's true. Doesn't happen all the time in every place, but it does happen from time to time because these are common enemies. These are people that can't agree to disagree. Don't agree on everything. Now, there's a lot of conversations that are had on the yard. There's a lot of shit that goes on. And if something could happen where you could talk it out and communicate, that's even better than guerra, right? Nobody really wants to war, but everybody's prepared for it in the California system. Okay, everybody, blacks, whites, brown, others, everybody will stand their ground and hold down for what they believe in. Their gente, people, not necessarily gangs, but their people. Their ethnicity. We're all one race, their ethnicity. Blacks are the same way, man. You ain't gonna tell them nothing. That's it. So lately, people have been saying that Dubs has to be a racist, or he's a racist because he's more loyal to the Southern cause, or in his videos, the Southsiders never take the L or never lose. He can only tell you his perspective on things. Okay, in every story, there's gonna be a winner and there's gonna be a loser. And you can't make everybody happy. As content creators, we try to do the best we can to entertain everyone equally and to try to make everyone happy. But it's a cold game. I talked to Dubs on the phone. It's cold. Like, there's stories I want to tell you guys that I can't because one group's going to get fucking butthurt. One group's going to feel some type of way and think automatically I'm racist because a black lost in a fight, or a Mexican lost in a fight, or a white lost in a fight. If you fucking lost, you lost. If you won, you won. I'm going to give it to you raw, uncut. And Dubs is going to do the same thing. Now, coming from that perspective and having been a Southerner like he was, most of his stories that he's going to tell are going to be about the Southsider victories. He has told a lot of stories about them taking L's, or he has told stories about them, being in the wrong situation or wrong place at the wrong time. But in the most part, he's coming from a group that's pretty much the prominent group in prison, the deepest group. They might lose battles, but they hardly lose wars. That's just what it is because they have sheer numbers and manpower. So a lot of these stories that he's going to tell, it's going to hurt people's feelings. It's going to make people think some type of way like he's a racist. But I could tell you, having personal relationships, having broke bread with Dubs, having been to his home and been around him, this is one of the most least racial persons I ever met in my life. There's nothing racist about Dubs. He treats others how they treat him, very respectfully, and methodically thinks before he says anything. That's why me and him are so cool and we get along so good, is where I'm just fucking going, right? My mouth, I'm just like, what's up? What's good with it, right? I tell my stories and I have a good time doing it. I'm a little raw with it, uncut. He thinks about what he's going to say before he says it. Now, when he told this story the other day, which is getting all this hyphy shit going about Dubs being racist, when he told this story about the water fountain, I know Damian Porter, Chinaman from Hoover, did the initial spill on it. He took offense to it. And I think people twisted it and started to spin a narrative because there's been a lot of people that have been labeling Dubs racist because they don't like the fact that he tells stories about Southerners winning. But it's his truth. It's what he's seen. You can only talk about what you've seen. And in that case, Dubs wasn't trying to talk about the Southsiders punking the brothers of the blacks. He wasn't talking about that. See, no one gets punked in prison. It doesn't happen. Everyone is willing to go. It could go up quick, especially in the 90s. It would go up. Any little thing. People were waiting for it to go up because that was real gangbanging. In the 2000s, things switched up a little bit and there was a little bit more communication. But like Dubs says, man, Guerra on War mostly stems from a breakdown in communication or a lack of in communication. Most times, if you could talk to someone man to man and figure out the situation, you can bypass having to put your fingertips on another person. You can bypass the bullshit, the lockdown, the strife, the struggle, everything that encompasses prison that makes it worse than it should be. It's bad enough being apart from your family and doing time, but now you have to struggle while doing time because of the choices you make over a breakdown in communication. This is game, right? Knowledge you can't get in college, so trip out. Dubs told the story about the water fountain being moved. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Damian Porter felt some type of way about it. And I think it was a breakdown in communication. I think Damian was more concerned with, the brothers not doing something about that, not getting off. Like he felt that Dubs was saying that the brothers just took it on the chin and just chalked it up and were too scared to get off behind that. But no, the moral of the story was that one guy, one Southsider, one individual was trying to stir up controversy, was trying to do something. And let me break it down. That yard in particular in New Folsom where this incident took place was considered a trash yard for the Southsiders before they started doing shoe kickouts and active Southsiders got there. So the Southerner, that was considered a trash yard, meaning that you couldn't function on that yard. You had a curfew, you had a time limit to get off that yard. I know them yards. I've been to them. Norteños have the same type of things. There's certain yards you can go to and function on and certain yards you can't. You have a 3-day fucking option to fucking get out or stay there. If you stay there, you're considered no good anymore. You can't come back. If you get off, then you go to the hole and then you're getting transferred to an institution that's good, or it can keep happening over and over again. That's part of the struggle. That's the northern struggle. And there's not very many institutions back in the days or prisons you were allowed to go to that were functioning. So you just had to keep getting off and going to the hole and doing time and no visits, no packages, no canteen, none of that until you eventually ended up where you needed to be. It wasn't a PC move. It was part of being active. You want to get active? That's that's activities for you. It's not all comfortable and you get to an institution or prison and get to lay down comfortable. Nah, you can get to a place that's rocking, right? Or you can get to a place that's not rocking and you got to rock it. That's just how it is. Because rocket don't stop, rocket don't joke, and rocket don't smoke. Rocket pulled the cap on the brother, right? And that's just it. So anyways, that's what that place was. They started to send a lot of active, real righteous Southsiders there. And so you got to understand these water fountains, where they were placed and, the areas. Prison's all about area. You fight for the establishment of your area. Everybody wants more handball courts. Everybody wants more of the basketball court. Everybody wants more of the soccer field, the latrine area, the water fountains. That's how it is. The yard is divided up. And it was divided up prior to Dubs and these guys getting there according to the old ways, according to the trash. So they didn't have much. The trash guys definitely weren't going to tell the brothers anything because the brothers would be like, cuz on crib, get out of here, right? On Paru, get the fuck up out of here. But when real Southerners started getting their vatos that were with the business, right, got there, they decided, or that guy decided, hey, we don't have enough area here than what we should have. We don't have our social status of equality. So he decided, even against better judgment like Dubs and people that were not racist against blacks, not tripping off the brothers, man, but were content with what they had. We're just able to get that start establishing that yard. That dude took it upon himself to have this thing dug up, this fucking water fountain or whatever. And now the brothers came over, and I think the part of the story that got Damian Porter was that the brothers came, and of course they're not going to go in the Southsiders area. That's a threat. Just like the Southsiders are not going to go in their area. It's a threat. So when the blacks did approach, hey bro, what's up? We can't use this water fountain. The Southerners say it's in our area, Charlie, whatever. The brothers could have and should have. Those went back to their people, and if they were feeling that serious about it, got off. Okay? Back in the 90s, there'd have been no questions asked. Knives would have been pulled. Everyone would have started getting off. Okay? But these guys decided for whatever reason, it wasn't in their best interest. Maybe they had fucking dope going on. Maybe they had a lot going on. But their llavero, their person that was fucking calling shots, talked with, Dubs and them and figured it out and said, hey, you know what? We don't, fuck that water fountain. It's not that serious to go to war over a water fountain. We got 2 of them already. Now you guys got 2. Let's let it go. Now, I think Damian Porter was like thinking that Dubs was like, aha, we punked them. And that is racial, to say that you punked another group based on pigmentation of their skin or because you believe in different philosophies. But that's not what he said. He was basically telling you how one guy tried to dick up the program, how he tried to instigate guerra with the blacks, but the blacks weren't dumb enough to fall for that bullshit. They were smart enough to understand that it was not worth going to war over one guy who had an agenda, who was probably racist, right? Because there are a lot of people. Now, people ask me all the time, who's the most racist people in prison? Do you want me to be honest with you, or am I going to hurt feelings? Because to be totally honest with you, there's two groups that are considered very racial in prison. And it's not the Southsiders. They do their own thing. They fight amongst Mexicans. That's their number one adversaries, or within their own car. So they don't really got time to be racial. Yes, there's a lot of incidents that come up with the blacks. And the reason is they're the two largest groups. The two biggest groups are always going to have funk. That's just part of life, right? But to be honest with you, the groups that are most racial that I've seen from my perspective, and don't fall off on me and hate me because of it, and don't get all hurt in your feelings. You can say and voice your opinion however you feel. But the two most racial groups are the skinheads, not the Woods. I know Woods that listen to Mac Dre, the skinheads, who go in there with the political agenda. Not all of them, but the ones in the California system go in there with hatred. It's instilled in them. That's their movement. They believe in superiority amongst all. You know, they have their agenda. So they don't like to deal with anyone outside of their race. They might do business, but they're not going to eat after no one. They're not going to function with no one. They're not going to sit down and play cards. They're not going to do that. The skins are different. They move very, very militant according to their program. And most skinheads come from the streets like that. They don't just become a skinhead in prison. They already are indoctrinated, and that's instilled in them. That's what they are. And the blacks, there's a lot of brothers, man, that don't care for the Mexicans and don't care for the whites. And people like to call it reverse racism. What the fuck is that? There is no reverse racism. Racism is just racism, period. You know, if you're a black that doesn't like a white because he's white, if you're a white that doesn't like a black because of the pigmentation and the color of his skin, then you're racist, right? Or you got fucking racial tendencies. I'm not saying that you're a racist, but you know, there's some shit going on there. To me, to my perspective, right? That's what I've seen. Okay? There's a lot of propaganda that goes around, and it goes around both ways. Yeah, people like to talk shit about the other sides, right? And I'm not here to defend the brown over the black or the black over the brown, period. I'm just calling it from my perspective how I've seen it, right? To say that Dubs is a racist guy because he told a story about a water fountain and the blacks didn't come out on top that day. How many stories has he told where the brothers did? A lot. Now, of course, his stories are going to seem Southsider heavy. You know, I've mentioned it to him like, damn, you about to ever lose or what? He wasn't part of a losing situation. He didn't put himself around losers. No one does. You try to stay with the winning team, right? You try to keep yourself surrounded and function with vatos that are your heavy hitters. He was in a different level, an elite class when it comes to prison. See, not everyone is of the same status. There's guys that are just, hey, these cons don't click. They're just doing time, right? There's guys that are just doing time. They're not really political. They follow the politics of their people, but they're not trying to go out there and stab people. And then there are those that are striving for status. Okay, there are those that are trying to be all political, trying to be heavy in the mix. And that goes on every side. Black, north, south, white, Wood brothers, right? Everybody. Those guys are the ones that get very political. Those are the ones putting in that work, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you Dub's business. That's his own, you know, he could tell you his business, what he was doing. But he obviously wasn't amongst a whole bunch of people where they were taking L's, okay? His stories are not going to be Southern heavy, but he's a Southerner from Southern California telling the stories. It's just like if a black tells you a story. He's not going to talk about losing every time. Now, people that have common sense know that you can't win them all. You know, that's why my stories, I tell you when I lose. I'm not scared to tell you when I take a L. I'm not scared to tell you when I take a W. But it's tricky on social media. You have to make everybody happy, because if you don't keep everyone happy, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a whole bunch of hatred, and there's going to be people calling you racist, just like they're doing Dubs. This man talks to brothers all the time on the phone, man. Sat down with Caleb Pinkett, sat down with Little Eazy-E, sat down with Corrupt. I mean, bumps fucking Nipsey Hussle on the daily. You know, has fucking every Southern California black rapper on his rotation. I know, I've cruised with him in the shit. He put it on Sport and we were dipping, bumping Nipsey Hussle. You know, so he's the least racial person I've ever met, but gets I guess he leaves a bad taste in people's mouth because he's coming from a Southsider perspective and people automatically assume Southerners hate blacks. Or they automatically assume that blacks hate Southerners. There is animosity there. There has been animosity, but there's a lot of relationships on the streets and people getting along as well. Now, I know in the past there was a green light on the blacks and there was, blacks and Mexicans, but you got to look at the Southern group, man, and give them the respect. This is why I respect them too. When they go to war with the brothers on the yard, they don't go to war with just the Crips, or they don't go to war with just the Bloods or the Bay Area. They go to war with all the brothers, right? They don't have the luxury of picking and choosing what it is. They have to go against everyone. And now that evens out the numbers. Okay, so they're doing their thing. But to sit there and say, that Dubs is racist, I mean, that's like calling the kettle green, right? Come on, bro. It's black, not blue, right? This guy is a Southerner from Southern California, man, that is just telling you the way it was back then. Yes, it did have some racial element to it. Yes, there was a lot of racist shit going on. But if you listen to the story, that people are saying Dubs is racist. Didn't you hear him saying that when the dude asked him, hey, we should move the fucking water fountain? He said, Charlie, bro, it ain't that serious. What are you tripping on? He was the one trying to talk the dude down. He said the dude did it anyways, right? If he was racist, he'd have been like, fuck them vatos, do it, just to do it, right? Come on now, man. There's a difference between someone that hates you because they ain't you or hates you because you are, rather than someone who tries to diffuse situations because he has a strong mind and he's educated. When you're in prison, it's unfortunate that that's the way it is. But people are always going to turn something into racial. That's just like the Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney fight. You know how many people are in there making it about race? Oh, finally the Mexicans got one. Oh, man, they wouldn't have did that if Devin was Mexican. And then it goes the other way too. You know what I'm saying? Oh, y'all motherfuckers just fucking hate Devin because he's black, or y'all motherfuckers just hate Ryan because he's brown. It's not about that. It's about two men that went in there that are actually friends, and one of them whipped the other one's ass. That's it. It doesn't matter who wins, black or brown. You finally got one. Finally got one. What do you mean finally got one? Canelo got one too. Mayweather got one over Canelo. It goes every which way. It's not racial, but people make it that. We live in a world where people can't get over the bullshit, man. We all make good music. We all have bad chicks, black and brown. So this guy love me a light-skinned black chick. Hello, Laura London. Rest in peace, Nipsey. I'm just saying, respects. Kobe's wife can get it too. So it's equal opportunity right here. I'm just saying, we need to start respecting each other more and keeping it real. This narrative that I'm hearing from the black side talking about Southerners and Mexicans are allowed to snitch on blacks in prison. Lies. Never gonna happen. We're talking about a group, the Southsiders, that will kill each other over a little bit of nothing. Their own people. You think that they're gonna be allowed to snitch on blacks? Come on, bro. They're not even allowed to fucking go to the program office by themselves. Or, you have to, and if you're saying that, then what makes them different with the Northerners that the Northerners don't do it, right? And I've heard, and this one guy, I think he was the other day, he was saying all Mexicans snitch on blacks in prison. They're allowed to. First of all, the Mexicans, you got the Paisas, the North, the South. They all got different shot callers. So you're telling me that these fucking big prison organizations there's just one single person calling the shot for everyone and decided that, hey, it's okay for all Mexican groups to snitch on blacks? It's not happening, bro. No way. If anything, North and South, they're going to do totally opposite of each other. They're not going to agree. So it's not happening. It just doesn't. It's fake. It's a myth. It's an urban legend. It's like saying Bigfoot has a bigger dick than me. It's fake. He might have bigger feet, but a pipa, no way, right? I'm just kidding. With that being said, man, Dubs is not a racist, bro. Sabes que, hey, like I said, the only thing he don't care for is my black vehicle, right? And that's it. He says it's too hot. Other than that, he's a real good individual, man. And I hate to see someone like that be thrown under the bus over something that's frivolous and bullshit. And the cool part is Chinaman did another story where he says, Dubs is his friend. and you know, he just took it the wrong way. But people are running with this narrative. Dubs is the last one on earth racist. Believe me, man. You know, he'll tell you stories that might hurt your heart. You might not feel good because fucking your people lost that day. But let me tell you, bro, there's other stories we could tell you that would make motherfuckers want to cancel people or really think a motherfucker's racist. But motherfuckers don't do that because people don't know how to take it. People don't know how to take the truth. It's hard to listen to the truth. You'd rather listen to people like Adam and Wes Watson and them lie to you than the truth. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. Get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the strive, the struggle, the struggle, the strive. I appreciate you. Gunners Collective TV is back booming. Make sure you tap into the collective clips. Hey, I will be bringing Super Wood on this channel. Super Norteño on the other channel is going to stay. So anyone that loves the comedy, man, I'm going to have it banging on both channels. Shout! Tap in.